On February 14, 1942, at 0320 hours, 30 kilometers southwest of Hanover, Sergeant Frank Williams's Wellington bomber was hit by anti-aircraft fire, its starboard engine failing. The aircraft lurched violently as hydraulic fluid coated the cockpit glass. Williams struggled with the controls, but the bomber spiraled downwards. "Bail out," he yelled. As crew members disappeared into the darkness, Williams followed, pulling his ripcord at 2,000 feet. His parachute opened abruptly. Below, the burning Wellington plunged into a forest, casting an ominous orange glow on the frozen landscape. Williams landed hard in a snow-covered field, his ankle twisting. Before he could gather his chute, German voices and flashlight beams converged on him. A rifle barrel pressed against his back, and he raised his hands. Roughly searched by Wehrmacht soldiers, Williams had his escape kit, identity discs, and a photograph of his Sydney family confiscated. He was marched 3 kilometers to a village, where a Luftwaffe officer questioned him in broken English. In keeping with the Geneva Convention, Williams provided only his name, rank, and serial number. The officer offered a chilling smile. "You will talk at Stalag Luft Australian. Everyone talks there." Guards pushed him into a truck with 3 other downed airmen, 2 British and 1 Canadian. They rode in silence as the truck rumbled eastward through the night. Williams leaned against the frozen metal, his throbbing ankle and the taste of blood in his mouth, a stark reminder of his new reality. The war, once distant at 18,000 feet, was now brutally immediate. He was a prisoner of the Third Reich. 3 days later, Williams arrived at Stalag Luft near Frankfurt, the Luftwaffe's specialized interrogation center. His processing included a delousing station where his head was shaved and he was sprayed with foul-smelling chemicals. His uniform was replaced by threadbare Wehrmacht cast-offs and wooden clogs. His solitary confinement cell measured 6 by 9 feet, illuminated by a continuously burning naked bulb. Guards constantly adjusted the temperature, alternating between freezing and stifling, disrupting his sleep. Interrogators appeared at random, shifting between friendly offers of cigarettes and threats of execution. Williams steadfastly maintained his silence. After 12 days, they conceded defeat. He had passed his first test. In April 1942, Williams and 40 other prisoners endured a 2-day cattle car journey northeast towards Silesia. Packed tightly, they stood for the entire trip, a single bucket serving as their latrine. The stench became unbearable. At Sagan Station, when the doors finally opened, several men collapsed onto the platform. Williams breathed in the spring air, his first fresh breath in 48 hours. SS guards organized them into ranks and marched them 2 kilometers through a pine forest. Then Williams saw it. Stalag Luft III, the Luftwaffe's maximum security prison for Allied airmen. The camp sprawled across a cleared forest, a series of identical grey barracks compounds encircled by double rows of barbed wire fences. Guard towers positioned every 100 meters featured searchlights and machine gun nests. Between the fences, gleaming coils of razor wire lay menacingly. Beyond that, a tripwire marked the death zone. Crossing it meant immediate shooting. The main gate was inscribed with Kriegsgefangenen Lager der Luftwaffe, prisoner of war camp of the Air Force. Williams noted a crucial detail. The guards were Luftwaffe, not SS. These were former flyers, relegated to guard duty due to injury or age. This distinction offered a glimmer of hope. The Geneva Convention might hold some meaning here. Oberfeldwebel Hermann Glemnitz, the camp's chief security officer, addressed the new prisoners in flawless English. "You are officers and NCOs of enemy air forces. You will be treated according to international law. However, you will be watched every moment. This camp has been designed by experts to prevent escape. The wire is impossible. The forest is patrolled. You are 300 kilometers from any neutral border. Escape is futile. Accept your situation and wait for the war's end." He paused, the implicit threat hanging in the air. Those who try will be caught. Those who succeed in leaving the wire will be hunted. Germany shows mercy to airmen, but Berlin grows less patient with escapers. Williams understood. While the camp adhered to Geneva rules, the Gestapo beyond the wire operated under entirely different, brutal orders. Williams was assigned to Barracks 104, Room 23 in the East Compound. The hut, like 50 others, was built on stilts to prevent tunneling, with tar-papered walls and a single coal stove in the common room. His room contained 12 bunks, wooden shelves, and a small table. As he entered, the occupants looked up. Flight Lieutenant Roger Bushell, a South African RAF pilot with piercing eyes and a scarred face, extended his hand. "Roger Bushell, welcome to the Luft III University. We teach only one subject here, escape." Around the table sat the compound's ex-organization, the Escape Committee. Within hours, Williams realized Stalag Luft III was not merely a prison, it was a factory dedicated to freedom. Bushell meticulously explained the camp's escape infrastructure. 3 tunnels, Tom, Dick, and Harry, were under simultaneous construction. "Dispersal is our biggest challenge," he stated. "We're moving 200 tons of sand from under the wire, and the goons search constantly. But tunnels are just the first problem." He laid out maps, railway schedules copied from German newspapers, and compass designs. Then he produced a stack of papers that made Williams's heart sink. Identity papers, work permits, travel documents, all crude forgeries, undeniably fake to any trained observer. "This is what gets our men caught," Bushell said bitterly. "We can get them out of the wire. We can dress them in civilian clothes. But these papers wouldn't fool a railway ticket clerk, much less Gestapo." Williams picked up a forged Ausweis, an identity card. The printing was uneven, created with hand-carved rubber stamps. The photograph clearly revealed RAF features: military haircut, prisoner pallor. The official stamps were amateurish, childish efforts compared to genuine German bureaucracy. Having seen authentic papers during his interrogation, Williams knew German documents were typographic masterpieces, multicolored with complex stamps and seals. These forgeries, he realized, were death sentences. "How many men have made it home?" Williams asked. Bushell's expression darkened. "Out of 300 escape attempts from all camps, perhaps 30 made home runs. Most are recaptured within 48 hours. Some are shot. The Gestapo doesn't ask questions first." That night, Williams lay on his bunk, deep in thought. Years of navigating cockpit instrumentation had given him steady hands and fine motor control, threading wires through bomber dashboards. His eyesight could spot enemy fighters from 5 miles away. Before enlisting, he had worked briefly in his uncle's printing shop in Sydney, honing skills in typesetting and layout. These seemingly irrelevant skills now felt like potential weapons. If 300 men had failed due to shoddy papers, then perfect papers could secure success where tunnels and bravery alone had not. Physical escape was one battle. The psychological escape, convincing Germans of legitimacy, was the true war. Williams began an obsessive study of German documents. Guards carried dozens. Identification booklets, leave passes, railway warrants, ration cards. He observed them during morning appel, during compound searches, whenever guards came close. He memorized typefaces, stamp colors, and paper quality. He sought out Henri Picard, a French forger already working on the camp's documents. "I can help," Williams said simply. Picard initially scoffed. "You are pilot, not artist." But Williams produced a sketch, a perfect reproduction of a German railway ticket, drawn from memory, and Picard's laughter ceased. Within weeks, Williams took charge of forgery operations. The shop was ingeniously hidden in a loft above Barracks 103's washroom, accessible through a trap door. There, surrounded by stolen German newspapers, copied documents, and hand-carved printing blocks, Williams established his factory. The challenge was materials. Everything, Ink, paper, stamps, photographs had to be created or illicitly obtained. The camp became his supplier. Bribed guards exchanged paper for chocolate from Red Cross parcels. Ink was concocted from crushed pencil leads, boot polish, and beetroot dye. Rubber stamps were carved from boot heels with razor blades. A camera was assembled from stolen tin, spectacle lenses, and scavenged photographic paper. Every item was contraband, and discovery meant solitary confinement, possibly execution. Williams's critical realization came from understanding German bureaucracy. Paperwork created reality. If documents appeared perfect, Germans believed them. Their system hinged on forms, stamps, and official seals. To flawlessly forge these wasn't just disguising an escaper, it was bestowing legal existence within the Reich. Williams began crafting complete identities. A French worker, for example, required a worker's permit, an employer's letter, a ration card, a travel pass, and an identity booklet. Each document cross-referenced the others, creating an ironclad narrative. He studied German psychology through guards' conversations, discerning what officials looked for, what aroused suspicion. Details were paramount. A travel pass needed the correct district stamp, a work permit, the precise employer code for the industry. One error could lead to death. By winter 1942, Williams had produced 17 complete identity sets, each requiring 3 weeks of painstaking work. Bushell tested these by having prisoners, dressed in civilian clothes, present the forged documents to guards in mock checkpoint scenarios near the wire. The guards waved them through. They had achieved something unprecedented. Escapers who could move invisibly through Germany, ghosts with papers proving their belonging. Williams fully grasped the terrible responsibility. These documents would carry men into the heart of Nazi Germany. If the forgeries failed, those men would die. If they succeeded, they might reach neutral territory, fly again, and return to fight, perhaps to kill more Germans. Every pen stroke was an act of warfare. The forger's bench had become his cockpit. The mission changed, but the stakes remained absolute. March the 24th, 1944, 22:30 hours. Sergeant Frank Williams meticulously applied the final Gestapo stamp to squadron leader Roger Bushell's Ausweis, German identity card, deeming the forgery flawless. Under a concealed lamp in Hut 104, Williams scrutinized the document. A legitimate photograph, the correct Gestapo watermark, a signature matching his memorized samples from 14 regional offices, and picker typeface precisely replicated from a stolen, modified German typewriter. Bushell, escapee number 4, received the card. 76 men would soon navigate Harry, a 336-foot tunnel, each relying on Williams's 3 months of relentless forgery. A single error, an incorrect date, an outdated stamp, a misspelled name could expose the entire mission, not just the escapee. The tunnel exit opened 15 minutes late at 22:45 hours. Flight Lieutenant Bob McBride, stationed in Hut 104, received the rope tug, signaling the first man's entry. From his forgery station, Williams watched as escapees descended, each carrying a satchel of personalized documents. French workers, Dutch laborers, German businessmen, Polish engineers, each identity required specific paperwork, work permits for industrial zones, travel permits for rail routes, food ration cards reflecting regional allocations. Williams had catalogued 72 variations of German administrative stamps, 18 paper types, and memorized bureaucratic procedures for 6 occupied territories. His forgery alcove, hidden behind a false wall in Hut 104, housed a reference library of stolen documents, traced samples, checkpoint maps, and German police procedures gleaned from guard interrogations and bribed contacts. Squadron leader Len Trent's papers identified him as a Belgian electrical worker heading to Breslau. Williams had meticulously adapted a legitimate work permit from a Belgian prisoner, altering dates and descriptions. The travel permit bore an accurate Sagan stamp, obtained weeks earlier when Williams had 17 seconds to impress modelling clay onto an unattended guard stamp. From this mould, he carved a replica using a razor blade and stolen linoleum. Each forgery was tested against authentic samples for ink density, pressure, and alignment. A Gestapo officer would find Trent's papers authentic unless they verified the invented permit number, a risk Williams took, banking on German bureaucratic inefficiency. By midnight, 32 men had entered the tunnel. Williams remained in his alcove for last-minute adjustments. Flight Lieutenant Des Plunkett, identified as a Norwegian shipyard worker, descended next. Williams had based Plunkett's papers on Norwegian text from a fellow prisoner's textbook, carefully mimicking grammar he barely understood. The work permit referenced the Stettin shipyards, chosen for its lighter northern checkpoint security. Travel authorization stamps from 3 districts fabricated a journey from Oslo through Denmark to Germany, complete with manufactured train tickets, border stamps, and hotel registrations. The tickets were crafted from cigarette packets, dyed with coffee, and printed with hand-carved plates made from flattened toothpaste tubes. At 0045, the tunnel collapsed 30 feet from the exit due to a fractured support beam. Wing Commander Bob Tuck emerged from Hut 104, dirty, reporting the obstruction. Escape operations ceased. Prisoners retreated as diggers cleared the blockage. Williams calculated the fast-approaching dawn, 0530, and the 0600 roll call. Guards would discover the escape by 0600. With only 4 hours and 15 minutes remaining for the remaining 44 men, Williams's meticulously organized documents, each representing 3 weeks' work, now faced the threat of drastically reduced effectiveness. The collapse threatened to transform a mass breakout into a minor one. The blockage was cleared by 0130, but the 45-minute delay compressed the schedule. Williams watched Flight Lieutenant Tony Bethel, disguised as a Greek labourer for a Silesian coal mine, enter the tunnel. His documents included a German work assignment letter, replete with Greek identity details, referencing the Gleiwitz industrial district. Having never seen authentic Greek papers, Williams relied on a Greek prisoner's memory. Bethel's photograph was enhanced with pencil shading to mimic low-quality worker ID photos. A genuine Gestapo stamp, traced from a document obtained via bribed guard, bore the current January 1944 design, a detail Williams knew from comparing older and newer samples. An outdated stamp could mean immediate arrest. At 0200, guards in the North Tower spotted movement near the tree line, 150 feet beyond the wire. A prisoner misjudged his exit from the forest-concealed tunnel. Searchlights swept, a warning shot was fired, and escape operations froze. Williams, still in Hut 104, knew the implications. The tunnel exit was discovered. This meant immediate lockdown, a camp search, and the arrest of all involved. He quickly stashed the remaining 44 document sets into a concealed compartment behind the alcove's false wall, scattered wood shavings to hide the seam, and moved towards the tunnel entrance where prisoners were abandoning the escape. Sirens blared at 0215 across Stalag Luft III. Commandant Friedrich von Lindeiner ordered a lockdown. Guards stormed barracks, counted prisoners, and searched huts. Williams feigned sleep in Hut 104. German soldiers overturned bunks and ripped mattresses. A guard approached Williams's hidden alcove, striking the false wall with his rifle butt, listening for hollow sounds. Williams maintained his breathing. The double wall construction created minimal acoustic difference. The guard moved on. Flight Lieutenant Bob Stanford Tuck showed no reaction. German officers knew a tunnel existed, but Harry's entrance remained hidden, a testament to squadron leader Roger Bushell and the tunnel team's concealment strategy, a washroom stove base on hidden hinges, which Williams had legitimately paved the way for through forged work permits authorizing the heating upgrade. At 0400, guards found the tunnel entrance. A search team discovered the concealed hinges under the washroom stove. Hauptmann Pieber, the security officer, descended into Harry to assess its length. Confined to Hut 104, Williams calculated the likely outcome. Fewer than the intended 76 men had escaped, perhaps 40 or 50, each carrying his forgeries. They would face German checkpoints, police, and border crossings. The forgeries had to be perfect. Williams had no real-world experience to verify their accuracy, only stolen samples, prisoner accounts, and logic. If one escapee was caught with an obvious forgery, the Gestapo would trace it back to Stalag Luft III, expose Williams, and execute him for sabotage. Dawn broke at 05:30 on March 25, 1944. During an emergency appel, German officers conducted a meticulous count. 76 prisoners were missing. Commandant von Lindeiner alerted Gestapo headquarters in Breslau, triggering Grossfahndung, a nationwide police alert. Within 2 hours, descriptions and photographs of the escapees reached every police station, railway checkpoint, and border crossing. Williams knew the alert system existed, but its scale exceeded his expectations. Hitler, informed of the mass escape, ordered ruthless pursuit. 70,000 Gestapo personnel mobilized, setting up roadblocks, deploying guards with photo books at train stations, and conducting house-to-house searches around Sagan. In his guarded confinement in Hut 104, Williams faced the grave consequences of his work. Each forged document now represented a potential death sentence, not just for the escapee, but for himself. German interrogators would inevitably expose the forgery operation, finding the alcove, materials, and sources. Williams had prepared. The forgery station lacked identifying marks or names, tools were generic, materials scavenged, and his coded reference library provided plausible deniability. Yet he knew his encyclopedic knowledge of German bureaucracy and his replication skills would betray him. The other prisoners knew. The escape committee knew. Under interrogation, someone would talk. Torture, isolation, or exhaustion would break operational security. Williams's survival prospects were negligible. His forgeries would either save the escapees or condemn him. No middle ground existed. By March 26th, whispered reports confirmed 15 escapees had been recaptured. Interrogations focused on document origins. Flight Lieutenant Brian Evans, caught near the Danish border, with papers identifying him as a Danish merchant seaman, forged by Williams using a dictionary and a Danish prisoner's description, reported passing 2 checkpoints before a suspicious Gestapo officer noted the photo quality. Evans, arrested, confirmed the documents came from Stalag Luft III, but refused to name the forger. On March 27th, 2 Gestapo agents arrived, demanding access to search facilities and interrogate prisoners about forgery. Williams, calculating survival strategies, prepared for arrest, knowing none truly existed. The crisis peaked at 1400 on March 29th, 1944. Commandant von Lindeiner ordered Williams to the administrative building for interrogation. Accompanied by guards, Williams entered to face Kriminalkommissar Hans Schmidt from Breslau headquarters. Schmidt sat behind a desk strewn with recaptured documents. Williams's forgeries, evidence laid bare. He held up an Ausweis, crafted for Flight Lieutenant Tom Kirby Green, its photograph showing clear forgery markers under magnification. Schmidt's single question, who created these documents? Williams understood. Confession meant execution for sabotage. Denial meant torture and execution. Silence meant torture, potentially implicating others, then execution. He chose the only path offering microscopic hope. He lied. He claimed multiple prisoners contributed, materials were communal, and no single forger existed. The documents were a collaborative effort over 18 months. He gave no names, no locations, no details. Schmidt, expressionless, ordered Williams returned to isolated confinement, pending further investigation. Back in his locked room in Hut 104, Williams knew his fate rested on the 76 men now fleeing across Germany. Their capture or survival would determine whether his forgery alcove became his monument or his grave. In May 1945, Soviet troops liberated thousands of Allied prisoners, among them Sergeant Frank Williams of the Royal Australian Air Force, from temporary compounds after a grueling forced march from Stalag Luft III. Weighing a mere 93 pounds, down from 148, Williams had endured a brutal westward march from Sagan starting January 27, 1945. Temperatures had plunged to minus 13 degrees Fahrenheit as he walked over 50 miles in 36 hours, clutching his remaining forgery tools in a torn blanket. On May 2, 1945, Russian soldiers found him in a barn near Lübeck, severely ill with pneumonia and malnutrition. His hands, once instruments of extraordinary wartime craft, now suffered from permanent nerve damage due to frostbite, leaving them with an uncontrollable tremor. A Soviet medical officer documented extensive scarring on fingertips consistent with chemical exposure and precision-cutting injuries, a testament to his dangerous work creating flawless Reich Eagle stamps and perfectly aged Auschwitz documents. The chaos of the Stalag Luft III evacuation had scattered Williams's forgery workshop across snow-covered routes. Months of meticulous work, perfecting documents, were abandoned. His handmade printing press, ingeniously crafted from bed slats and stolen linoleum, lay buried in the North Compound, along with 27 completed identity documents destined for future escape attempts. Williams later estimated that around 400 forged papers were destroyed or lost during the evacuation. Debriefed by British intelligence officers at Royal Air Force Station Cosford in June 1945, Williams astonished them with his photographic memory for forgery procedures, maintaining detailed mental inventories of every document type he'd made, every ink formula he'd perfected, and every aging technique he'd discovered. This expertise proved invaluable to Allied intelligence seeking to identify Nazi war criminals attempting to evade justice using forged documents. For 6 weeks at Cosford, Williams meticulously analyzed German identity document security features, information that was instrumental in identifying approximately 63 former SS officers trying to disappear into displaced person camps with falsified papers. Liberation, however, brought unexpected complexities. Williams's repatriation to Australia was delayed until September 1945 due to British intelligence demands and ongoing debriefings. During this period, he learned the full, devastating truth of the Great Escape's aftermath. On March 25, 1944, 73 of the 76 escapees were recaptured. Hitler, in a fit of rage, personally ordered their execution. By March 29, 1944, 50 men had been shot by the Gestapo in small groups, their bodies cremated, and their deaths officially explained as being shot while trying to escape again. In July 1945, Williams attended memorial services in Poznan as the initial investigation into these murders began. He identified forged documents recovered from the victims, testifying that 13 men had been carrying his forgeries when they were executed. Notably, squadron leader Roger Bushell, the mastermind of the Great Escape, possessed Williams's meticulously crafted Ausweis number 4327, a document Williams had spent 42 hours perfecting, which was found when Bushell's body was identified. Williams's testimony in the subsequent war crimes investigation demonstrated the high quality of his forgeries, confirming that several men had traveled over 100 miles before recapture. This underscored the document's effectiveness and affirmed that their detection wasn't due to flaws in his work, but to Hitler's overwhelming and merciless dragnet. Williams finally arrived in Sydney on October 3, 1945, aboard HMS Canimbla, weighing 117 pounds. His service record, declassified in 1973, revealed chronic respiratory problems from chemical exposure during his forgery work and permanent peripheral neuropathy in both hands. The Australian government offered no immediate recognition. His crucial role in the Great Escape remained classified until 1950, buried within intelligence files detailing methods and techniques still deemed militarily sensitive. Williams returned to his pre-war profession as a commercial artist in Melbourne, despite his damaged hands making fine detail work increasingly challenging. He married Dorothy Sinclair in November 1946, and they had 2 daughters. He rarely spoke publicly about his POW experiences, though former prisoners who contacted him reported that he corresponded with families of the executed escapees, quietly providing details of the documents their loved ones had carried, offering a small measure of comfort that these men had been equipped with the best possible tools for freedom. Formal recognition for Williams's extraordinary contributions was slow and often incomplete. In 1950, he received a mentioned in dispatches for exceptional service in captivity, a terse bureaucratic phrase that offered little immediate insight into the profound nature of his work. The 43-word citation made no specific mention of forgery or the Great Escape itself. The wider public first became aware of Stalag Luft III with the 1953 publication of Paul Brickill's The Great Escape. Brickill referred to Williams by his camp nickname Tim 3 times, consistently within the context of the Forgers as a collective group. Williams appeared in 2 uncaptioned photographs in the book's original British edition. This marginal recognition reflected a broader trend. Escape support operations consistently received less public attention than the tunnelers and escapees themselves. Those who created the tools, forged the documents, and built the essential infrastructure were largely unheralded compared to those who literally walked the tunnels they had made possible. For 2 decades, Williams's story largely remained within military intelligence circles. He died on February 19, 1967, at 54, due to complications from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, his lungs permanently damaged by exposure to photographic chemicals in the unventilated spaces of Stalag Luft III. His obituary in the Age newspaper simply noted he was a former POW and commercial artist, neglecting any mention of his pivotal forgery work. His family donated his papers to the Australian War Memorial in 1969, where they remained uncatalogued until historian Dr. Richard Overy accessed them in 1987 while researching Allied intelligence operations. Overy discovered Williams's technical notebooks, painstakingly preserved by his widow, containing detailed descriptions of every forgery technique he had developed. These notebooks documented his ability to replicate 97 distinct document types, including railway police passes, Gestapo identification, French worker permits, and civilian ration cards. They revealed Williams had created a comprehensive reference library of German bureaucratic paperwork, even including regional and temporal variations, a systematic intelligence collection effort that had gone entirely unrecognized. The resurgence of interest in Williams's contributions gained momentum in 1988 with the Australian War Memorial's exhibition, The Great Escape, Australian Involvement. For the first time, Williams's actual forgery tools were publicly displayed, including his handmade compass punch, ink-grinding stones, and leather-working tools crafted from bed springs. The exhibition catalogue, researched by military historian Ashley Eakins, identified Williams as having produced or supervised the production of 462 forged documents for escape attempts from Stalag Luft III between 1942 and 1945, making him the most prolific document forger in British Commonwealth POW history. Eakins's research, drawing on newly declassified MI9 files, revealed that Williams's forgery methods had been documented by British escape and evasion intelligence officers and subsequently incorporated into training materials used at MI9 schools throughout the 1950s and 1960s. His ingenious techniques for aging paper using tea, coffee, and controlled sunlight exposure became standard instruction for Allied intelligence personnel, though Williams himself was never explicitly credited in these materials. Williams's modern military significance was most clearly affirmed through the United States Air Force Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape (SEER) program. After the Gulf War in 1991, with the capture of multiple coalition aircrews, USAF CR instructors conducted extensive historical reviews of POW escape attempts. Williams's case featured prominently in a classified study titled Enabling Infrastructure for Successful Escape Operations, produced by the 66th Training Squadron at Fairchild Air Force Base. This study lauded Williams's systematic approach to document forgery, his creation of vital reference materials, and his instruction of other prisoners as exemplary models for how support personnel facilitate escape operations. In 2003, the study was partially declassified, specifically citing Williams's forgery notebooks in sections on creation of escape infrastructure in denied environments and exploitation of enemy administrative vulnerabilities. Subsequently, the Australian Defence Force integrated Williams's story into its own SEER training in 2004, utilising his technical notebooks as primary source documents to illustrate the meticulous detail required for successful document forgery under operational conditions. Beyond training applications, recognition for Williams continued to grow. In 2009, the Royal Australian Air Force dedicated the Sergeant Frank Williams Room at RAF Base Laverton, displaying reproductions of his forged documents and examples of the crude materials he employed. The dedication ceremony, attended by Williams's surviving daughter, included testimony from Wing Commander Ken Reese, one of only 3 Great Escape survivors who successfully reached freedom. Reese affirmed that the forged documents, prepared by Williams's team, had enabled him to travel unchallenged by train from Sagan to the Baltic coast, covering over 130 miles through wartime Germany. In 2013, the RAF Museum Cosford in England mounted The Forgers' Hidden Heroes of POW Escapes, an exhibition that prominently featured Williams's work alongside other Allied forgery operations. Chemical analysis of Williams's inks within the exhibition revealed his successful replication of German official ink formulations using crushed graphite from electrical equipment, dissolved bakelite from phonograph records, and extracts from coloured book bindings. This forensic evidence technically validated what had long been suspected. Williams's forgeries were often indistinguishable from genuine German documents, even under contemporary examination. In 2014, the Australian War Memorial updated Williams's service record display, finally acknowledging his full contribution to the war effort. His story is now featured in the memorial's Second World War galleries under Innovation and Ingenuity in Captivity. The display includes his original forgery tools, sample documents, and technical notebooks, with detailed explanations of their creation and use. Annual commemorations of the Great Escape on March the 24th now regularly include specific recognition for the support personnel who enabled the escape attempt. Williams is mentioned by name in official Royal Australian Air Force commemorative statements, alongside the tunnellers and escapees themselves, a full 47 years after his death. Frank Williams's story transcends the mere technical achievement of masterful forgery under impossible conditions. It profoundly illustrates that modern warfare relies not solely on combat prowess or physical courage, but on the systematic application of specialized civilian skills to military challenges. Williams was an artist, not a warrior. Yet his contribution to Allied escape operations equaled, if not surpassed, that of many decorated combat veterans. His systematic approach to solving document authentication, his creation of training systems to disseminate his knowledge, and his meticulous documentation of methods demonstrated an analytical intelligence as valuable as any weapon. For contemporary POW policy, Williams's case highlights the crucial importance of recognizing and utilizing the full spectrum of prisoner capabilities. Military rank and combat role do not always identify those most effective in escape operations. The sergeant artist proved more indispensable to the escape infrastructure than many higher-ranking officers. The lessons from Williams's life remain acutely relevant in today's conflicts, where identity documentation serves as a primary mechanism of social control. Williams proved that even the most sophisticated document security systems possess vulnerabilities that can be exploited through careful observation, systematic analysis, and meticulous replication. His story serves as both an inspiration and a warning. An inspiration for those held captive, demonstrating that opportunities for resistance can emerge from unexpected places, and a warning to those who rely on documentation systems that human ingenuity, given sufficient time and motivation, can defeat even elaborate security measures. In an era dominated by biometric identification and digital documentation, Williams's analog achievements might seem quaint, yet the fundamental principle endures. Control systems depend on trust in authentication mechanisms, and that trust can be systematically exploited by those dedicated enough to study the system's weaknesses. The forgery king of Stalag Luft III established a legacy not of escape itself, but of meticulously creating the conditions that made escape possible. In the crucial architecture of resistance, Williams was not the man who simply walked to freedom. He was the man who ingeniously built the door.